Recorded at Get a Grip Studios in Toronto, Canada. A Get a Grip management production and in association with the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Financially supported by the good folks at the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, this is Restoring Darkness podcast.
This episode of Restoring Darkness is brought to you by Evluma. If you're serious about contributing to the reduction of light pollution, go to evluma.com, hover over products, and click on Dark Sky Friendly Lighting. Both the OmniMax and AreaMax lights are International Dark Sky Association certified. The warmer color temperatures of the OmniMax reduce the more easily scattered blue wavelengths, which contribute to glare and sky glow. With AreaMax lights, you get full cutoff, which also means no uplight and a significantly reduced contribution to sky glow. And all of Evluma's outdoor lighting product lines come with dimmable drivers for even more control. If your customer is looking for dark sky-friendly fixtures with energy savings while still meeting the demands of decorative lighting, look no further than Evluma. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of dark skies.
Hello, Restoring Darkness listeners. I want to give you a little bit of a heads up that this show we had a little bit of internet connectivity problems, but the producer listened to the show, I caught a little bit of it, and we feel like it's still worth putting out, even though it is a bit choppy at times. So I'm just giving you a warning that there's times in this podcast where it cuts out, but this content was good enough that we just thought, geez, we have to release this podcast with Bastian. So enjoy. Welcome back, darkness lovers. That's right. Here on Restoring Darkness, we have Bastian Groiss. He's got a tough German last name, so he can pronounce it for you himself in a second. I tried my best. Of German origins with a rural upbringing, former project manager, self-taught woodworker and handyman, spiritual explorer, student of the diamond approach, ambassador for regenerative agriculture, circadian rhythms, natural light, and a reconnection with nature. His website is circadian.life. So check it out. But for right now, we're going to talk to him on the Restoring Darkness podcast. How are you, Bastian?
I'm very well, thank you.
It's interesting. I'm looking at your profile here, and I want you to describe to me what you think our relationship with light and darkness is and how it's become perverted or transformed in the modern age.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a good question. Haven't really thought about it in that way. I think we completely we had a good relationship with light and dark, obviously till the invention of the light bulb by Edison, and then that goes hand in hand with the Industrial Revolution and longer work hours and more productivity and all of that. But I think it became really what's the right word? Like we became really alienated, I guess, with particular, not so much with the LEDs. The LEDs were obviously, the lighting is cheaper, so people don't think so much about anymore when they turn lights on and things like that. I remember when I was growing up, my stepdad was always kind of getting back on me, like when I turned the lights on, it's like, hey, that costs energy, and we want to save money and things like that. And that kind of completely, I think, went out the window when the LEDs came on the scene and kind of took over. So there was another barrier that kind of was kind of gone. And then I think with the rise of the mobile phones, particularly in the last kind of 2 decades, it just completely got perverted in a way where we have, midday conditions every day you look on your screen. And just that almost like an expectation that it is that we always need to have optimal lighting conditions for work, that we want to see everything like precisely and clearly all the time. And if that's not the case, well, we flick on the switch. And I think there isn't even any awareness around it anymore. I noticed that in myself when I started becoming aware of light and its impacts. It was so automatic for me to switch on the light switch, like when it's a bit dark outside and a bit gray, in the mornings. It was just so automatic. I didn't consider it at all. And yeah, so that's it's. I think it's just a lack of awareness and a lack of attention, and now just people, um, in a way, expect it to be like the way they want it to, like any time of the day, and they seem that to be, as it's that's normal, that's expected, and that's fine, because we don't. I guess the big thing, we don't think of light as anything else than related to vision and seeing.
Hmm.
That's the main thing. As long as I can see, that's fine, and that's all it does, and that's all it's there for, and everything else people just don't have in their cognition or in their awareness at all.
I think that it's a generational problem. The the paradox of darkness and its need and the need to be connected to it. It's similar to another business I'm in, which is the hazardous waste business. And what's interesting about hazardous waste, if you can shut off those alerts on your computer, just while we're talking here, but what's interesting about hazardous waste is that when you put it into a landfill, it might be decades before it actually becomes a problem, right? And so what happens is humans generally overestimate the short-term consequences or impacts or anything of something that happened. They look at a bright light, wow, that's fantastic, and they completely underestimate the long-term impacts of things, right? So we dump this hazardous waste in this landfill. Everything's okay, right? But then, 35 years later, it leaches into the water supply and groundwater moves very slowly, and then eventually it starts to hit aqueducts that wildlife or humans are drinking from, and you have problems. There's situations like this all over Europe, actually. And because of the lack of space, they have a lot of this problem. And it's the same with light pollution in Europe. Because it's such a small area, there's very little room for darkness preservation in Europe right now with the advance of LEDs. And the light pollution, the increase in outdoor light pollution and now indoor light pollution has happened at such an incremental rate that we don't even really look for it when we're assessing causes or correlations with disease or problems and things like that. People don't think about it. They do with bird migrations and turtles because it's so obvious and instantaneous that the light fixture is causing the turtle to go the wrong way. Instead of going to the ocean, it goes towards some LED light on the highway. That's obvious to us as humans, but we lack this understanding of things that take a long time. And it's probably taken 75 years for us to get to this point. Slowly, incrementally, people see less and less and less of the stars and less exposure to darkness, to the point now where the average American or the average European has probably never seen the Milky Way.
Mm, yeah, yeah, it's shocking. I know. And it's interesting, the analogy you made with the hazardous waste. There's another good analogy, like in trading, particularly in crypto trading, because most everyone gets wrecked trading, and
Mm-hmm.
because they want the short-term gratification, versus everyone would do much better if they would just hold and wait for the long term, 5 years, 10 years, and not go with the short market cycles and get wrecked while doing that. So it's just that something about that, and that's obviously part of our culture and our lifestyle, that kind of, I want it now, I can't wait, I want the hit now, I just can't. And the same with health, right? So we don't want to do the things that are impactful and that actually make a change. We want to do something that helps us now, or that fixes us now, that makes us feel good in the moment, and everything else is kind of not really part of the perspective, and that's just
Or
a massive
or on
problem.
top of that, we want to have someone to blame for our problems. We want it to be a medical problem. We want liposuction, or we want a stomach clamp to stop us from eating so much. We want some external thing to solve the problem instead of accepting responsibility. And it's a major problem in all areas of our society. This pandemic of bad leadership, of the pandemic of blaming other people or finding a scapegoat or looking for someone to demonize. And, the dark sky movement spent a long time in the wilderness being angry at the lighting industry, and or getting frustrated and angry with lighting people, and I find
Yeah.
that incredibly backwards because they're the ones that can fix the problem actually. And so I think we need to accept, I think first of all, why is um, darkness restoration and preservation outside of the environmental movement? Like Bastian, the average environmentalist does not think about darkness restoration or dark skies as an environmental issue. And they
Mm.
don't, and our medical community doesn't think of it as a health issue. Why is this? It so obviously is.
Yeah, well, the main thing is, as I said initially, people just see light or relate to light as an enabler for vision, and that's it. That's it.
That's it.
It's kind of bizarre because if you just think about that, obviously, the sun is the energy source and the giver of life and the regulator of life on the planet. How can it just be for vision? That just is. I mean, it's just so. It's like, what are you even talking about? Um, but yeah, it's just that we live so disconnected. All people's lives are governed by an artificial environment and by an artificial schedule, and that's what
Mm,
they adhere to. And because everyone else adheres to it and plays by that, it's actually really confronting to step outside of that because you come up against it. Yeah, so that's why I'm so passionate about circadian rhythms and living in sync with the light and dark cycles and eating at the right times and exercising at the right times and doing things that are species appropriate at the right
mm,
times so that our biology can be optimized and we do well, we make better decisions and we have a better outlook and we think more holistically and all of that. But that's only possible if we kind of get back to first of all, if we create an awareness around, if I don't have a clue when the sun is rising, um, and when it's going down, and I'm completely ignorant of that, well, my chances of making decisions that are more aligned with my biology and with my physiology, and then balancing the hormones that are all tied to that. It's almost like impossible because I can only rely on the signals I get from my body if my body is in balance, if my body is already out of balance and disrupted, then the signals I'm getting, they're off. So I can't really use that sense of our intuition and see what feels right. That works once we have gotten rid of some of the problems
hmm.
and found some balance. But if we're completely out of whack, we can't rely on the signals we're getting, and we also our thinking is off. And yeah, this it's but it's really that sense of kind of simple example. Stopping eating, let's say at around 3 to 4 hours before bed. So sleep is better, that digestion can happen, and we don't have any activity in um, our gut while we're sleeping. That the care can happen, that the immune system can activated, that the hormones can flow quickly. All of that is difficult. Makes probably people can relate to it, but the problem is it goes against the social stigma. People want to go out in the evening and have meals with their friends.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, I
so
do.
they
I
don't they
like to eat.
don't
I like to eat sometimes at night, but I think that it's interesting that the way you're speaking about it. I recall a book by Desmond Morris called The Naked Ape, where he looked at human beings from a zoological perspective. And there's simple truths about humans. We're not a nocturnal species. Okay? And people don't like to hear that kind of talk. They want to do whatever they want. But the fact is that humans are diurnal. They're awake during the day and they sleep at night. If you look at First Nations or whatever, indigenous communities around the world, they live in certain ways, all of them. And it's interesting. It's not they're how similar they all live from Papua New Guinea to Venezuela to Paraguay. They all live in these same groups in the same way in monogamous relationships, and they are asleep during the night. like, and
yeah.
and the fact that we deny this, these bold realities that of our species, if we speak of it from a zoological perspective, the human species is diurnal. And that means that if you're not sleeping at night, then you're going to be compromising your long-term health in some way. And that's proven in the statistics. They know that night workers and people that stay up at night, they know that light trespass can cause problems with people's sleep and lead to health issues and so on. But we seem to be in denial that we are also of this world, and that we are a species that has certain things that govern the way it should live and the way it shouldn't live. And I find it that the problems with that, this idea of accepting humans as a zoologically, is very, very difficult for people. They don't want to accept it. They think they want to do whatever they want. And, we live in a free country. That's debatable for different people, but people think we live in a free country and they can do whatever they want. But at the end of the day, there are consequences to this. There are consequences to having a phone in your face for 8 hours a day and primarily at night, watching videos and all that. How come this message cannot resonate? I find that it just, people hear it and then they go back to the way they live. Why is that? Are we not pointing out the pain enough? What do you think, Bastian?
It's again that, do you make decisions based on what's good for you long term, or do you want the short term gratification? Because the thing is, people don't, these simple things. I remember, I don't know how many years ago, I read a book on sleep. And basically the main message was, just go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I was going but I can't do that at all. That's, it's just too simple. It really works, but it's too inconvenient. It's too bloody inconvenient. People don't want to do the things that because it requires change. It requires change on the lifestyle. It requires change on the behavior. And I need to stop doing some things that I like to do. I feel like it's really that simple because our ego doesn't like change. And then we're also, the other big part is we're so arrogant as humans. We're so arrogant. We're so full of hubris. It's kind of actually not funny anymore. Yeah. And then we find reasons and rationale to justify the poor decisions we make. That's maybe a bit of a controversial topic, but you're probably aware of the idea of kind of chronotypes, and that people who have different kind of rhythms, and that the night owls and the early birds, and some sleep doctors come even up with more classifications, and then we justify staying up late because I'm a night owl on this and that, but if you actually take people out of their environment, particularly if you could even leave them where they remove the artificial light, all of that goes away. Right? And they did research at that. They took proclaimed night owls camping for a week without any devices and without any artificial light. And of course, all of them went to bed earlier and earlier, like every day, and woke up earlier and earlier every day. It's like,
yes,
duh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blue light is a stressor. What do you think is happening if you pump up your cortisol at night and you suppress your melatonin secretion? What do you think is going to happen?
That's a great observation.
Things are so obvious, but we're making excuses, and we're coming up with even often medical kind of conditions, or almost like exemptions, like, oh, I'm a night owl, I'm fine with light at night, I'm not sleeping anyway, right? It's just all these things that we kind of create, when actually, if you look at from a species level, and if you would remove the artificial light environment in this context, then these things wouldn't happen, or at least not to the extreme they are at the moment.
It's an interesting perspective, like that the medical community and I sell light bulbs every day, so I'm going to preface that. So I'm going to speak about the medical community. But what it seems to me is that there's a continual increase in the amount of different types and uniquenesses of different kinds of disorders. Or these chronotypes, you brought up, like, Yeah, I have the same observation. Never mind even in camping, but even we had a power outage recently for 4 days where I live. Okay? So there was a tornado landed in
Mm.
Ontario, and I live in a rural area, and so my power was off for 4 days, okay? And everybody went to bed earlier. Everybody. There was no TV. There was
Yeah.
no electric light in the house. Everything was dark in the house, and everyone, 9:30, all my kids, they want to go to sleep, right? All of a sudden, and they woke up in the morning after the third day. They started getting up in the morning on their own. It's actually it's an anecdotal example, but I totally believe the camping analysis. I don't buy this stuff that, some people, think. How do we? Okay, so darkness is important for human health. You made the point, and I've had this point on the show before, where people say, light, the sun gives us life. I don't think that's true 100% solely on its own. I think the sun and the moon together create light on Earth, a life on Earth. Okay, I think the moon has an essential role in sort of, you think about it, the moon pulls the Pacific Ocean from one side of the Earth to the other and then lets it go. And so there's like this mixing effect going on. And I think if people are looking for life on other planets, they should find them in the same distance from the Earth or whatever, but it has a moon. I think the moon is a fundamental aspect of life on Earth, just my opinion. So I think the
Mm.
darkness, the moon, and the mixing and all that, and these rhythms of the moon going around the Earth and changing it is fundamental to how life started here. And I want to ask you, there's this barrier safety argument we have, Bastian, where people are convinced that more light equals more safety. Now, there's arguments on either side. There's groups of people who have proven that more light reduces crime. There are people that say that that's not actually true. Um, what are your thoughts on the safety side of it from your spiritual circadian rhythm perspective? How do we overcome this idea that we have to light everything up like a prison yard?
Probably goes back to the thing of vision, right? You can see more, but if I mean, I have in a way, I'm not sure. I would like to see some statistic if that's actually true. If you light up, your industrial area with bright floodlights everywhere, if that reduces crime or not. Just do it in one area of the city, have an industrial area lighted up for a few years, and then have another one in darkness or with red light, whatever, for a period of few years, and do a comparison. Then you can find out. But even if there would be a significant kind of difference, it feels like the price we pay in order to have a bit more or less crime or less theft or whatnot. I don't know. It just pales in comparison um, to the impact on health and yeah, life on the planet. It's because it's that thing, kind of what you alluded to with the sun and the moon. It's kind of everything needs to be in a rhythm, right?
Hmm.
So the day and the sun brings life and brings energy, and we use that energy. We are active, and then we need the opposite. And that's the same in health. It's basically health is a balance between damage and repair. Damage occurs all the time, just breathing, eating, oxidate, just when the mitochondria produce energy, there's inherent that occurs that needs to be mopped up. So that's part of life. The damage happens all the time, but we need to also repair it. And so that same balance is in everything. In breath, out breath, the tides, the ebb and the flow. So we need that change, and it needs to be kind of in a similar kind of amplitude, if you wish. If that's not there, well, then again, it's unbalanced and we a toxic condition, and it leads eventually to disease and problems, and then also to more crime. If people are depressed and whatnot, you get also more crime. So it's like it's hard. It's such a big question. It's hard to answer that. Um, but I can only give you what I do at night. When I'm out in the and driving, which rarely happens. But if it happens, I wear my blue blockers, and it actually took a little while to get used to that at night, because obviously it's less, you see less, and you see less of the blue light and the green light. Um, but it's much more actually, for me, it's an interesting thing. Physiologically, what happened, I can't bear light at night anymore. I can't bear bright artificial LEDs in my eyes because it feels like an assault.
Mm.
Literally feels like someone is poking me in the eye.
Hmm.
So that's just what happens on a physiological level, and it's not just anecdotal for me. I heard that from so many people who changed their lighting habits dramatically, and their light hygiene. But yeah, so there's definitely that switch that happens, and if this, I don't know how to go back to the crime thing. There's an old book called At Day's Close, which talks about darkness in kind of historic times. And darkness was always a time for mystery and also dreams, but also for what they called evil, right? Because a lot of the crimes actually happened at night.
Mm-hmm.
Was also due to people got out, they got drunk, or stumbled and got robbed, or I think it's part and parcel that what happens in the shadows, so to speak. But to use it as an excuse to mess with all biology on the planet and throw that off for the sake of having a bit more safety, it's like similar to what happened with the COVID stuff. Do we stop life and do we stop interacting for the sake of safety, so-called safety?
Safety is a word that has no meaning anymore. Safety just means
Yeah,
has come to mean oppression of kind. Like it's come to mean coercion and yeah. There's a lot of words that have lost their meaning in the last couple years. Safety being the number one. So much nonsense is justified in the name of safety. In construction and all over the place. There's it's kind of lost its value as a word. You mentioned something called light hygiene. I've never heard that
yes.
before, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of lighting podcasts. Tell me what you mean by light
Oh,
hygiene.
well, basically, circadian rhythms are mainly driven by light. The main cue for circadian rhythms, which basically regulate all your physiological kind of activity. And people don't appreciate that because like supposedly there's 100,000 biochemical reactions per cell per second that need to be regulated. Um, and actually, just from a physical point of view, this cannot happen electrically because it takes too long. It cannot happen chemically. It would take even longer, take minutes rather than a second for all these reactions to happen. So the only thing that regulates these reactions, light, so that's the speed of light, is entirely kind of possible. But going to the light hygiene, um, the blue light in particular sets or resets the circadian rhythm and sets the time of day. So when at sunrise, there's minimal blue light, but it starts rising. There's lots of red and infrared light. And then after sunrise, at some time, UV light appears. First UVA, and then a bit later UVB appears, and that has other hormonal effects. But so talking from a light hygiene, the problem is the sunlight has the full spectrum. It goes from UV to infrared, and it's balanced. It's about 50% is always red and infrared. Tiny portion is UV, and then you have a slightly bigger portion of blue light, and then green, yellow, etc., etc. And all these frequencies have actually they kind of have different kind of bioactive kind of reactions that they trigger. Like with UV, UVB, people know it makes vitamin D in the skin, for example. UVA releases nitric oxide in the skin and is actually really powerful to combat kind of heart disease and issues like that. And it also makes a whole host of other hormones in the skin, like literally, because what happens when light slows down, it becomes mass, like Einstein showed that, and basically it makes hormones in us. It's like a hormonal cocktail. And we are kind of addicted to that. And if we, for example, if we don't get that, then we're more prone to wanting more forms of opioid, of kind of compounds. For example, the sun makes serotonin, it makes dopamine, and all these kind of feel-good hormones that help us think better and our mood improves, etc., etc. So if we miss out on that, for example, if we're only inside during the day, then we don't get that hormonal input from the UV light. But what we get is the impact from the blue light, and the blue light, releases cortisol and is a stressor. That's why it's used in a lot of workplaces to increase productivity. But if you do that all the time, if you stress people and all the time and get them pumped, and you don't have the repair, you create a problem. And we have the problem because, particularly in the LEDs, there's literally zero red light, or almost zero, and definitely zero infrared light, which is half the portion of the spectrum of sunlight. So you only get the stressor from artificial light, but you don't get the repair. And that's a big issue. In sunlight, you don't have the problem because it's always the damage and the repair, the stressor and the repair goes hand in hand. You cannot separate it. So that's a massive problem. So that's one part of light hygiene, that means that just being inside during the day, even if you don't have artificial light on, the window glass blocks about 50%, if not more, of the red and the infrared light. Meaning you already have an altered light spectrum just being inside behind glass. Which also means if you walk around outside, for example, and have glasses on, you have the same problem again.
Well, let me ask you this. This is what I've been thinking about. I've always felt that sunglasses, while some people do need them, and there are medical reasons for wearing sunglasses for some people, I think there's a lot of people that, get out of bed in a condo, go down to a parking garage, put on sunglasses, drive to work, go into another parking garage, go up an elevator, sit in an office all day, go down to the parking garage, put on their sunglasses, drive out in a car. I think that there could be negative impacts to sunglasses, no matter how expensive they are or whatever. I know for certain that while we do absorb the good, beautiful things from light on our skin, most of it happens in our eyes. And a lot of triggering for circadian rhythm has happened when sunlight strikes your eye. And this idea that that everyone should be wearing sunglasses all the time outside is marketing, not science. I don't believe that there's any. What's that? You agree with that?
There's a big industry behind it, right? That it's like always, where's the vested interest to sell you something? And that's the thing, you can't sell the sun. I mean, they're trying to, but basically, the things that are free and that are natural are being vilified, and everything artificial where you can make money off people and keep them coming back is being promoted. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. But the thing with classes is really that it's that simple thing. I can send you probably hundreds of resources on that, just particularly on the eye and eye health. It's and I'm not. It's maybe an interesting little bit segue. Most people are not aware that one third of the world's population is myopic, short-sighted, and there's a prediction that by I'm not sure if it was 2025, 30, it would be half the population is myopic.
Yeah, there's definitely a pandemic of eye diseases, especially in Asia. I've heard that in Asia that there's a particularly large problem with myopia. Possibly in their politics as well, but
I mean they are even more avid users, and particularly the young people are even more avid users of mobile phones, right? And they're literally like have them in front of their face like all the time. And what you do is basically, and I'm not an eye doctor, obviously, but what happens is almost like the eyeball with the blue light. It kind of gets elongated, And the thing is, what's missing again in the light from the phone is red light. You need the red light is energizing. It gives the mitochondria in the cells the energy to do their job and to repair. And there's thousands and thousands of references of red light therapy um, being very effective for skin issues, for bones,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
for intestinal issues, for wound repair, for hair growth, for teeth and gum repair, for eyes, all of that. So we need the red light, and since people are literally preventing themselves from getting any red light into their eyes, onto their skin, um, we are becoming literally degenerated. Our tissue just gets stressed, gets used, but the repair mechanisms are severely limited. Because, as you say, people just, they're inside, they go into the car, they put their sunglasses on, they go out, they definitely put their sunglasses on, a lot of people, even when it's kind of a bizarre thing here in New Zealand, like walking around with sun gray outside. I'm just like, why not? But it's kind of like an habituation. What happened, you don't allow your tissue to get any regenerative kind of frequencies.
And you know,
That's,
it's
that's
there's something about sunglasses. People are really attached to them, but the message would be you want to be outside in the sunshine during the day, and you want darkness at night. And I think that we've talked a lot on this show about the regenerative power of the sunlight, and I don't believe humans can really ever mimic that. I don't think you even know what the light from the sun totally is. And so, but yes, we do have medical interventions that can help with um, eczema and all these skin conditions that you had mentioned and various other things. But what about darkness? There is a healing effect, I think, as well to following the patterns of the natural day cycle, where when it gets darker, you go to sleep. And do you understand anything about how that works, or is it? It's interesting in the lighting industry that we've often tried to um, all of the health impacts from lighting that actually worked were when we removed something that was causing damage. So, for example, when we removed flicker from fluorescent tubes, it made for healthier lighting. We reintroduced flicker after with LEDs that flicker, and we reintroduced the problem of flicker. And so, other things like that, the removal of a negative, something that was causing problems. I think it's very dicey for us to start to say this lighting system will have this impact on productivity of your workers, or that we're going to add some kind of benefit using electric light. I think I think adding the benefit of darkness is much easier and far more. Whenever you look at the plus sides to positive circadian living, okay, generally all of the good things that you get are from achieving better sleep. So when they say that you're going to be more alert because of the circadian friendly lighting or whatever, or they say that you're going to feel better or you're going to have less illness or whatever, it's probably more because you're sleeping better than it is because of the actual exposure to the electric light. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, before we go there, let me just go one back and clarify or add one thing to the classes aspect.
Sure.
Because what's happening with the classes is as well that there's a thing of polarization, right? All the modern classes are pretty much polarized. So they
Mm-hmm.
kind of structure the light so
Mm-hmm.
that's all nice and parallel and hits your eyes in the kind of same angle,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of makes the eyes kind of lazy. Um,
Hmm.
Versus if you have unpolarized light and you don't have that kind of same direction that the light rays hit you, it comes from every angle, from
Hmm.
everywhere. In particular, if it's kind of
Hmm.
if you have glare or if you have surfaces that reflect the light, it comes literally from every angle in all sorts of different ways, which is a bit strenuous for the eyes because they need to work more. So a good analogy I heard from Dr. Lieberman, who wrote lots of books on this topic, is like class are almost like a crutch for your eye, right? So your eyes don't come, and they're not as able to cope with kind of natural unfiltered light. So that's just one aspect where you literally kind of again put yourself in a weak position with kind of wearing glasses.
Are you talking about Jacob Lieberman? Jacob Lieberman, Dr. Jacob Lieberman?
Yes.
Yeah, he's been a guest on this show actually.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
he's an interesting. He's got. I read both of his books, Luminous Life, and I can't remember the name of the other one. But yeah, he talks. Like when you speak to him about optical improvements for people, he says some mind blowing things that are pretty hard to believe actually. You know, that you can actually heal bad vision rather than having a life with glasses,
Yes.
and that a
Yes.
lot of people can't see. Like his idea that a lot of people can't see because what was it that they're choosing not to? Like their brain is subconsciously choosing to blur their vision for some reason, and that some of it's related to trauma in life. That's mind blowing, actually, that you could lose your vision because of
Yeah,
emotional trauma. It's mind blowing to
I
me.
can I can definitely see how that's related. And definitely see how that's related. But even if people don't want to go there cognitively, just the simple fact that the glasses are polarized and that they
Mm.
structure the light in a way easier for the eyes and for you to kind of process it. And if you do that continuously, well, it's like literally like if you walk with a imagine you have a support system for your skeleton or a suit that kind of props you up a little when you walk. Do that long
Hmm.
enough, you take that off, you'll have a hard. Yeah, so it's just from that perspective, I find it really really interesting, um, because the thing is, we need. That's the other part. We talked about, I mentioned a lot about stress and repair or damage and repair, which needs to be in balance. But the problem nowadays is what we have. We have a lot of like continuous stress, like all the time. We're always chasing our tail. We're always busy. We're always doing one thing after the other. We're always stimulated from electronics and devices and information and
Hmm.
rushing from one to the next. We're always under artificial light. We're always around pollutants. We're always around EMFs. It's just constant bombardment. We're thinking incessantly and we can't stop. But we're constantly on the go. Um, but what we don't have is actually intense acute stressors, like doing something really hard, like doing something physical really hard, or
Hmm.
even just training your eyes, for example, doing some sun gazing in the morning, when the sun comes up for a minute or two.
Hmm.
Doing things that are difficult so that we can adapt and get better and get stronger, whether we train the muscles or whether we train the eyes or whether we train our digestive system or whatever it is. Um, then because then we're much more able to kind of cope with everyday kind of life and everyday stresses, because it's like in comparison, it's kind of a joke. There's a really, really good book that the audience might be interested in. It's called The Comfort Crisis. And it basically talks about that phenomenon that
Hmm.
everything needs to be kind of convenient and easy and, effortless kind of thing. And we want it then and there. Um, and that's a problem because if everything is so easy and convenient, the smallest kind of completely, and we kind of dummy cope with. Not training our to deal with like a really kind of difficult situation because everything is so easy. Don't need to lift anything hard. Don't need to do anything hard. And if there's a problem, people usually try to avoid problems, right? If there's actually an issue, we try to distract ourselves or take some drugs or whatnot to not cope and actually not feel the impact. Um, yeah, so it's a bit of a long-winded, long-winded response to that. Um, but going back, because you asked about darkness the impact of that. The thing is, in order for the sleep to be better, it actually depends massively on what you do during the day. Like there's so many studies that show clearly, like particular morning light, early morning light when you wake up, like natural light, obviously, I'm not talking about artificial light,
Mm-hmm.
is one of the best things you can do to improve your sleep. And that's again tied to the circadian rhythms. So the more signals you get during the day of the right timing information, then you naturally kind of wind down, unless you interrupt that, to sleep. Because there's a homeostatic sleep drive, and then there's a circadian rhythm related kind of sleep drive. So the homeostatic one is the one basically with time awake. The longer you are awake and the more active you are, that'll then the more activity you do during the day, the longer you're awake, the sooner you will kind of fall asleep and have the need to kind of recover. That's one aspect. The other aspect is the one related to all the hormonal rhythms of the circadian system, which is again, and being in our house, melatonin. Melatonin is actually when tryptophan gets converted to serotonin, and that happens by the impact of UV light. So if you don't get UV light, you make less serotonin, and then you have less of a pool to draw from at night to make melatonin. So it's another connection that people have no clue about, that if you actually don't get the UV light on your skin during the day, you make less serotonin, meaning also you feel less good, right? And you're less able to focus. But also you produce less melatonin at night. And if you then suppress that little melatonin that would be secreted at night by having lights on at night, particular kind of blue lights and bright lights, then you have a big problem. And then if you continue that long enough, well, you get inflammations and degeneration, literally. So it's everything is kind of part and parcel. Everything is connected. You cannot separate one from the other. It's kind of, I guess, what I'm trying to say. And yes, we need the natural light during the day, and we need the darkness at night. What's easier for people to implement? I don't know. I think that's quite an individual question, because it's not that straightforward for people to stop going out, or people feel socially awkward with wearing blue blockers and things like that. So it feels like it's an individual choice, kind of where people start, and ideally they do everything, but that's not realistic. So it's just, I don't know where's the easiest way in, or a person to quite an individual choice, I feel.
Are you aware of the reality TV show called Alone? You ever heard of that TV show? It's like
No.
So what they do is they take people with survival skills and they drop them off in northern Canada in September and see how long they can survive with minimal tools, having to hunt their own food and having to face the elements in the snow and build their own shelter. It's actually an interesting show. But every time I watch it, there's a couple things that I find that are very interesting. There was one fellow that was dropped off on the side of a mountain, and he didn't get any natural sunlight. Like he got up in the morning, but the sun would never shine on his particular spot where he was because of the way the mountain was and that. And he became desperate to be in the sunshine. Like after about 2 weeks, he ended up climbing to the top of the mountain just so he could feel the sun on his face. And when he got to the top of the mountain, and because he was in the shadow of this mountain all the time, and when he got to the top of the mountain and he had the sun on his face, he started crying, and he was saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I haven't had the sun on my face in a week and a half or 2 weeks." Another thing that's interesting about that show is there's no vegetarians. When they start to starve, they all want to eat fish like crazy. They all want to eat meat. Like all they want to eat is meat. And there's interesting things that kind of when you watch those extreme environments, or you watch people, you have these campers that went out, left their phones, said they were night hawks or night owls, and then went out and then they sleep at night and they're up during the day. You see that all of these people go to bed with sundown and they rise at sunrise on this show. They want to eat meat. They don't want to be vegetarians anymore, or whatever it is. They're craving fat. And they want sunlight on their bodies. They want to feel the sunshine. And if they can't feel it, it drives them crazy. And our society, you talk about the comfort trap or whatever, we're kind of put into this zone where we can have just enough of everything to keep us alive to the next day. And a lot of the gaps are filled in with sugar and TV and Twitter and social media. And we kind of live in this realm of not, acute sickness being created, but not optimization. And part of that is that, you have that street light outside your house shining in your window on you all night long. And, you never see the stars in your whole life. You never see the Milky Way. And we have all of this sort of stuff. And people are, talking people into like with marketing into sunglasses and sunscreens and strange diets, and different things that are addictive or bad. And we live in this zone where most people are not thriving. They're just surviving in the world and they don't know what to do. And what I hear you advocating for, Bastian, is exercise. Go outside every day. Eliminate, live with the rhythm of the sun and the moon. Go to bed when it's dark, and live in that kind of balance. It's actually quite simple: diet, exercise, sleep, and being outside, breathing fresh air. How am I summarizing it up pretty well? I don't know. I'm just listening to you here.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I like to kind of like getting people back in touch with nature,
Mm,
because we're out of touch, we're out of sync, we're completely alienated, we're completely, as a species, it feels like we're completely lost in a drift, because we forgot who we are, we forgot where we come from, we almost like forgot what's good for us, um, and I don't know, it's almost like the technology and the artificial and the virtual, it's like a mesmerizing, tantalizing kind of promise,
mm,
um, that we get kind of lost in. It's great that we can have calls like this and talk with other
sure.
people on the other side of the planet and exchange information. There's fantastic things with it, but if we get like lost in it, and if we get just drowning in information, and we're needing to pick up our phone because there's another notification, and we just again, it's just another like addiction, another stressor, another that yeah, for me, what stands out lately so much is just the pace of life, because I just moved from Auckland to a small town called Raglan in New Zealand, and just the change in energy, like around me, like the stillness and the quiet of the rural landscapes, and obviously like the stars I see at night here, the Milky Way is like, I see like, I don't know, 20 times more than in Auckland. It's
Mm,
just such a big difference.
mm,
It's such a difference. But and then it's almost like a bit more I guess the spiritual connection. Looking at if you actually look at the proper night sky, puts things in perspective. Like all my
mhm,
leaves and my links that I'm grappling with, like look immense, and my speck, on this little planet, just not taking myself so seriously, just
mhm.
putting, I don't know, just I think the
Or
spiritual
taking
component,
yourself more seriously. Both. I mean,
both,
you know,
yeah,
I truly believe. I've interviewed many people. One of the things that people that have been starved of darkness, or starved for experiences of seeing a beautiful sky filled with stars is that when they get it, so if you take them, there's different things they do in these darkness experiences that are out there, but one of them is like you put on a blindfold, then you lay down on a rock, and then all of a sudden you take the blindfold off and there's the stars in front of you. And it's people describe these situations very similar to how they describe psychedelic experiences. Like it's the two things are very close. They sound the same. You have these realizations, you have these moments of humility, right? You see that you're on this wet rock, spinning around this universe, and we know that those stars are millions of miles away. And so there definitely is a dawning of humility when one encounters the stars. And I think it's missing. I honestly do. I think a lot of our problems are driven by what you said earlier, the ego. People are deep in their egos, and they think that they can decide, whatever they want to be, and it doesn't matter, and it won't affect them, and it won't affect anybody else. But actually, the energy is bad, and I don't want to talk in those terms, but the energy in our society is very negative right now, and I think it has something to do with people being starved, which the former name of the show was Starving for Darkness, but people being starved of darkness, of daylight, not having access to that spiritual connect, that natural daily dose of darkness, and then intermittent doses of cool moons and beautiful starry nights. I think people are absolutely craving that, and they have no idea that they're missing it. I truly believe that, Bastian.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. It almost feels like it's because it really what happens in order for me to actually being able to feel that and observe it and actually pay attention to the night sky or to the moon, I actually need to slow down and stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's another big problem because if I'm always busy and I have another thing to do and I feel like this and that and the other, well, then I actually can't feel, I actually can't relate, I actually can't touch in because I'm just blah, spinning out, and I don't actually have the capacity to observe something else and to actually let it in and let it impact me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same if you let's say talk to your partner or something. If you're busy and you have something else on your mind, you can't listen.
No.
You can't pay attention. You can't let it in. You don't feel. You can't relate because you're blocked already. You're preoccupied. And so that's another thing that is like so important. And it actually nature allows us to slow down, but it takes some time.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Like it's interesting, like when I think it's actually like if you take people into nature, and I know that myself when I go on longer hiking trips. Yes, I feel the impact immediately, but it actually takes a few days to actually really, really home, really slow down, and suddenly different because I'm really present, really there, and it's different. It takes time, but my point is, nature for me is kind of a touchstone. If we get more people back into nature in whatever way, in whatever form, on however little it is, people start out with, it can only be beneficial and it can only support health and healthier decisions and connection with self, connection with nature, connection with others, connection with spirit. Um, yeah, so that's like an important part because without that remembrance, without that touchstone where we came from and who we are and how we fit into the bigger picture, um, we'll be adrift and we'll do dumb shit as we are.
Yeah, it's that's I think a good place to call it, Bastian. And I thank you for being a guest on the Restoring Darkness podcast. Do you have any final thoughts for the listeners or any messages that you'd like to give them here at the close?
Um, just find a way that works for you on a daily basis. That is, find something that you can do on a daily basis that you can commit to, that you do every single day, that supports you. Whether that's going out at night. It's actually something I started doing just before bed, going out, looking at the sky, and doing a few minute kind of breathing exercise. whether it's something like that, or whether it's trying to get up at the same time, and step outside and spend 5 minutes outside before you do anything else, and just get natural light in your eyes. So you might combine that with a little morning walk, right? Maybe you go out 5-10 minutes. You just go for a walk. Just something like that. Some time, let you wake up, to let you get some natural light in your eyes, to set your all of these things, simple things, them continuously, and then that'll beget more good habits down the road. And if people are interested, to have a bit of a deeper dive into all things circadian rhythm and light, then just check out our app. It's called Circadian, Your Natural Rhythm. You find it on the App Store and the Play Store. And yeah, that can help and support you to start with some healthy lifestyle habits and start making a change and reconnect.
And when you do that walk, leave your phone at home, and don't bring it with you, folks. What I do is I talk to the moon. Yeah, it's crazy, but I actually talk to the moon, Bastian. I talk to her, and I just say hello, and I have conversations. And when she's in different moods all the time, you'll see her. She changes, and
That's
people.
interesting.
Yeah,
I
it
I
is.
really love that idea, because I don't. It's interesting because I don't have a let's say, established relationship to the moon. I have a love affair with the sun.
Mm-hmm,
I actually call the sun kind of almost like my best friend,
mm-hmm.
because of what happens, like when similar that guy you described who climbed up in the mountain and was like, oh my God, weeping.
Yeah.
Um, if I pay attention when my skin is in the sun, it's almost like I don't want to say orgasmic experience, but it's definitely like a felt visceral, like, oh my God, this is so good, this is soothing, this is touching,
Mm.
this is connecting, this is warming, this is loving, really. Um, yeah, again, but we're only able to touch into that if we're kind of present. If we're busy and preoccupied, then that's just no. There's time, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, make some time for a slow connection.
You know what? You know what's interesting about that feeling you talk about of the sun on your skin. I totally understand what you mean, but there's something that mimics it, and um, all northern cultures have, I don't know about all, but many have some sort of sauna where
Yes.
hot rocks or a stove with a wood, and I happen to own a sauna, a wood burning sauna. And there, if you go into a sauna in the winter, I'll bet dollars to donuts that there is a similar reaction to that. Like that's humans replacing the sun in the winter. There's something to that infrared heat, which is also a form of light that's in the sunlight, that does something that's super good for you. Because if you go into everyone does saunas at night. That's generally when they're done in these cultures. They do it in the evening. They get the sauna going, and you go in and you spend some time in the sauna with maybe you have some cold therapy where you jump in a cold lake and then back into the sauna. There is something to that is absolutely good for your health. I don't know what it is, but I know that when I go up to the cottage in November and December and before we close it and we do these sauna activities, I feel so much better. I sleep so much better and I feel so much better. So there's something to this infrared energy that strikes us and is absorbed by our body that we do not get from electric light. That maybe from incandescent lights, I don't know, but we're definitely not getting it from LED lights. And saunas, I think, provide like a solution to that that our ancestors came up with. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more that there's something. I don't talk to the sun. I don't know why, but I talk to the moon, and I have great conversations with her. She's an interesting cat. When you have to put your phone away and start to build a relationship with the moon, all of us. Why not, folks? And the stars,
Yeah.
because all of our ancestors out there, folks, had very, very close relationships with the astral bodies, spiritual, deep.
Yeah,
We're a creature.
and that's the thing, and the seasons, right? That's the
Oh
thing,
yeah.
and the seasons. And that's another big part. Just touching back into what actually, how your landscape is changing, what grows currently in your environment, and these are actually the things that you should eat. In a way, you have no business eating anything else than what's growing in your local environment, which is obviously hard. And I'm not doing that 100% myself either. I still have coffee and chocolate's kind of that's just too tempting and too delicious to say no to. But overall, just again, more that paying attention to the environment and kind of having a relationship and starting relating, however that looks like. Maybe some people want to talk to it. For others, it's more felt experience. Maybe others, have a little garden or start foraging or whatever it is. But some touchstone, some connection that works for you to kind of get a bit closer and get a bit more intimate.
Don't eat any raccoons or skunks though, because you're going to get sick. But other than that, yeah. I mean, hunting. Listen, I don't hunt myself, but I'm an advocate for it. I think it's important to see, again, back to reference that show Alone. When those people are hungry and they catch a fish, they thank whatever gods they know. And they kiss that fish and they thank that animal for giving its life to them so they can eat. You wouldn't believe some of the moments that you see on that show when people are really hungry. They catch a fish. They're thanking that fish and all the fish that are left out in the lake for giving themselves to their sustenance. And the relationship just happens naturally. Before they went out there, they wouldn't be praying to the fish gods and thanking them with total humility, gratitude all at once in that moment. And so, yeah, we got to be connected to our environment. We have to be. And the moon is out there, even if you can't see the stars. If you can't see the stars, you can still see the moon. And the moon changes. And she's further away sometimes. She's closer. She's on the horizon. Sometimes she shows up before the sun goes down. Other times she's big and bright in the sky. There's times when it looks like the moon, if you're in the right position and she's rising, you can see it coming up over the horizon and it looks enormous. And then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller as it travels away from the earth. You can have a relationship with the moon. I'm not crazy. You can do this. I've done it. But Bastian, we've gone over an hour. It
sounds like you should write a poem to the moon.
I have written a poem to the moon.
You have written a poem? Oh, God. I could feel it. Like when you were speaking right now, it felt like, yes.
Oh, man, the moon. Listen, the people are way underestimating the relationship you can have with the moon. You can have a relationship with the moon. I'm not kidding you, people. Listen, the moon pulls the Pacific Ocean from one side of the world to the other and then lets it go. You don't think she has an effect on you? Come on, man. That thing's pulling at your insides and causing all kinds of stuff to happen.
Yeah, well, 99% of our atoms in the body are water. So, yes, we are being pulled and pushed and changed.
So ask her for things. She does things to you. Ask her for things.
Massively.
Yeah. Ask the moon for things. That's what I say. But Bastian, we got to shut it down.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Check out Bastian's website, Circadian Life. We're going to have all of his social media up on the restoringdarkness.com website. And we're going to also reference a couple books that were put out there. You got them? Luminous Life by Dr. Lieberman. The other one, yeah. They'll all be up on the website. But if you made it to the end, we had a few technical difficulties on this one, but we appreciate you listening. We love you guys out there. Bye for now.
Look no further for dark sky-friendly products than Evluma. Since its first product launch, Evluma has carried one or more International Dark Sky Association certified models. If your customer cares about light pollution, suggest the OmniMax with shielding or the AreaMax with full cutoff to reduce uplight and glare. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of darkness.